Okay, it's been a little while since I've done a video. That's okay. Like, it's sad, yeah, sure. I should be trying to grow this channel. That's just not the way this works. As a creative person, that's just not the way this works. By the way, I've picked up a new hobby. I'm gonna start trying to make some. Here, I'll try to get close to the camera. That won't ever focus very well. I'm trying to make some copper jewelry. That sounds crazy. And you might ask, what is my purpose with doing that? Oh, it looks so much cooler when I can actually get a clean photo of it. Um, First of all, the material is really, really cheap. It's like $5 a pound of copper. Um, yeah, that's just one, that's nuts. Two, that means I think I know ways to handle the process of what I want to do. I think I could probably end up pouring molds of it and making actually really cool stuff out of it. And the way I would do that is the expensive part is I'm gonna have to get a um, I will have to start using a 3D printer to do it, but that's not the worst thing in the world. Um, and like I'm gonna have to start getting a whole bunch of tools to do that with, but that's fine. It's not just the 3D printer. It's going to be the propane. It's going to be the torch. It's going to be the um, the furnace. There's just going to be a whole lot of things to make it work. But in the end, I think it'll be really cool when I'm done with it. Um, the reason why I'm doing this, one, of course, the price of the material. Two, I like the way it tarnishes. Copper turns really cool colors when it starts to tarnish. And obviously you don't want to tarnish too much. But if you let it tarnish a little bit, it looks really, really cool. Now it starts to go black at the beginning, but then it starts to go blue and green. And it's really cool. And that mixed with the red already, it's really cool. And what makes it tarnish is, guess what? Sweat. Salt, water, and acidic water. So, sweat. Thankfully, sweat's not that bad on it. And actually, there is a solution. Let's see if you guys can read it. Oh, the same issue. Nail polish. So, here's the thing. I don't actually intend to sell it for quite some time. I intend to just get comfortable with using it and comfortable with how it corrodes, and I actually intend to give it out to friends and family. And then the big underlying reason why is I'm trying to resolve some stuff back here. Remember, this is a life update. This part of the video is because I always do life updates. I I know exactly what the problem is, and the solution is literally just going out and doing something over and over and over again, and then moving up to the next step, and then going and doing that for a while, and just getting more comfortable in my own skin in ways that when I was growing up, was prevented from interacting with. It's actually going to be a really big issue for a lot of men. So I actually have like a few ideas brewing in my head, but that's like I'm only going to do one of them. And this one's actually really cool. I'm gonna pause this for 1 second. I was just whistling something while I was looking for it. I am going to be reading a little bit of this. Yeah, that's completely legible. My Septuagint. And there's actually a really important reason why. should be in Genesis 3. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and explain my idea. I think literature in the most recent years has taken a very important turn. This is actually a really cool idea. When I say recent years, I'm saying like last 50. That's like in the grand scheme of things, that's beautiful. That's rapid. That's like a snap of a finger in the span of a human life. That's roughly the amount of time. Um, and the idea is really cool, and I'm wanting to address it, and I think it's something that we had to stumble across through storytelling to understand. And it's completely, um, it's a new original idea, sort of, but like you can, if you've lived life long enough, you can experience it. Um, and it is the pull of evil. My claim is that most evil people don't look ugly on the outside. In fact, the way they got to where they were was because they had help, and oftentimes they actually kind of look kind of beautiful. Um, it's why you can. It's why all the more recent figures of Satan that have come up in modern media have come off as an extremely um, aristocratic, hyper beautiful man, and that has to do with the fact that there's a couple underlying things here. One, I'm gonna go ahead and find it. Where is it? I'm gonna go ahead and read Genesis 3. I think I'll start in 4. I'm gonna read this and then I'll explain what's going on afterwards. Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and brought forth Cain, and said, I have gained a man through God. And she again bore his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And it was so after some time that Cain brought of the fruits of the earth a sacrifice to the Lord. And Abel also brought of the firstborn of his sheep and of his fatlings. And God looked upon Abel and his gifts, but Cain and his sacrifices he regarded not. And Cain was exceedingly sorrowful, and his countenance fell. And the Lord God said to Cain, Why art thou become very sorrowful, and why is thy countenance fallen? Hast thou not sinned if thou hast brought it rightly, but not rightly divided it? But still to thee shall be his submission, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain said to Abel his brother, Let us go out to the plain. And it came to pass that when they were in the plain, Cain rose up against Abel his brother, and slew him. And the Lord God said to Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? The Lord said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood cries to me out of the ground. And now thou art cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the earth, then it shall not continue to give its strength to thee. Thou shalt be groaning and trembling on the earth. And Cain said to the Lord God, My crime is too great for me to be forgiven. If thou castest me out this day from the face of the earth, and I shall be hidden from thy presence, I shall be groaning and trembling upon the earth. then it will be that anyone that finds me shall slay me. Um, huh. I just read that and I thought it was in there. That's from my Septuagint. Um, I bet it probably is in the King James, which is kind of funny. That's a little scary. Um, okay, so my idea is that evil's actually really tempting. It's alluring. Like a mistress. I don't know if I passed over it here. Give me 1 second to read. Huh. Okay, this may be. Okay, this isn't. This may be an interesting time to say the Septuagint may not have all the same ideas as the more recent Hebrew text, which I'm willing to let pass. Huh. Okay. So in the more recent text, in the Cain and Abel story, um, God's conversation with Cain talks about how he kind of entwined himself with evil. There was a description. This is sort of coming out of the Jordan Peterson lecture, Genesis lectures, which you can watch, and it's in there, which and I'm almost certain that means it's in the King James and New King James and the more recent translations of the Bible, which is fine because I would still include the idea here. Sin is enticing. Evil is an alluring mistress. Why am I using feminine traits there? Um, I don't know. From a purely literary perspective, just straight up from the Bible, there is no claim here. This is where I'm going to tread off the beaten path and claim that the idea of Lilith, the queen of demons, the first wife of Adam, probably has some, probably, yeah, probably has some, something to speak into the story here that, well, into the Hebrew text story that I'm not aware of. But I don't know why it's not in this one. Huh. Anyways, hey, at least you get to see it in person, right? There's this idea that sin is like a sexually aroused predator that seeks to entwine itself with you and conceive something horrible with you. Um, and I'm going to say that evil. I'm going to say this as a human being that has experienced this temptation quite a bit. Evil is really tempting. Sometimes it is vengeance, some masquerading itself as justice. Sometimes, like, I'm a manager, I know this shit. I know what goes on in my heart. I know the exact thought pattern that arises, and I have to remain tempered. And I have one of my other supervisors is not so tempered, and I have to have this conversation with her the next time I talk to her. Because if things continue the way things are going when I'm not there, people will probably quit if I leave. That's not a good thing. Plus side, it means I'm probably on the right path, but at the same time, um, I think that the claim that I made is humans are not efficiency machines. They are um, um, people machines. They do people things. Humans are definitely not machines, nor are they intentionally efficient. And like, what end would they be efficient to? Because sometimes the ends that they are efficient to, they're really good at, like spinning social webs. And when you're working in a social environment like a grocery store, where there's all sorts of drama, those kinds of people tend to thrive not doing their work. That's beside the point. Evil's tempting. And it's not just retaliatory. It is sometimes you enjoy the control. You feel the siren's call to do something mean to someone, especially when they don't deserve it. Sometimes you're wrong and you want to take it out on that person. Thankfully, when I feel this, I have the conflicting thought pattern immediately right afterwards. Usually, that steps in and say, hey, you suck just as much as they do. Cut me a little slack sometimes. And I do. And sometimes the solution is literally just intervene directly in their attempts to do things they shouldn't do. That's literally what I was doing. It's now 1 a.m. So two nights ago, it was Sunday the 23rd when I did the thing that my other supervisor has no understanding of how to do. I mean, she does, and I tell her to do it this way every single time because it's way more subversive and it accomplishes just as much. In fact, it accomplishes a little bit more because you can build up rapport by being clever about telling people, go away, go do this. People will actually respond better to social interactions when you are a little bit playful about giving them the order that you need to, and then when they try to not do the thing, you intervene in whatever they're trying to do instead. It's really funny because it works, and like it actually builds up some social rapport, especially when there's men involved, because like they know you're calling them out on their bullshit without actively saying knock it off. And sometimes you get to say knock it off, go away, shoo. It's more fun that way too. Like they get to laugh at themselves a little bit when they get called out, instead of you paging for a manager and be like, hey, this person is being insubordinate. I've actually had to do that now once. For the first time in 2 years, I've had to page up a manager and say, this person will not freaking do their job. These are the consequences I'm giving them. I need your back. They said yes. And they weren't even that big of consequences. They're scary to someone who hasn't faced them yet. But like, if you understand the amount of paperwork it takes to fire you in this environment, and the process that they have to have in order to do it, all you have to do is not freaking steal and not come in drunk. And even then, you have a relatively, like, in comparison to a non-unionized store, you have a 10x times likeliness of surviving that kind of event. It's crazy. You could literally fall asleep in your car for 12 hours on the clock and still get your job back. Oh, how inefficient human beings are. But beside the point. So where was I going with this? The coolest modern interpretation of evil is now a. I'm not saying like Satan is the more modern Satan depictions are going around that the serial killers are all looking very attractive and charming and competent. And they actually get high positions of power in society. And it has to do with the halo effect. And for those of you who don't know, there's this thing where I reference it with my female coworkers all the time, whether they are subordinates or they work in different departments. I make fun of them for having pretty people problems, like they get hit on a whole lot, or they are expected to be better than like if you don't treat them as a pretty person, they don't have all these expectations put on them. But if you do, you expect them to be you expect more of them. And then they tend to fall short on those, but because they're pretty, the consequences are really minor. So they actually tend to keep the jobs that they shouldn't for longer. It's really funny because I get to make fun of my cashiers and some of my coworkers and be like, oh, boo-hoo, I have pretty people problems, oh no! Anyways, like, there's literal sociological and psychological studies on this. People who are pretty get a much higher percentage chance of getting jobs when they go into interviews. People who are pretty tend to get treated nicer and get treated like they deserve more. They get treated like they have earned things that they definitely have not. If you are pretty and you get pulled over by a police officer, odds are they are going to believe that you are a better natured person than you are. That's just the way it is. I am slightly suspicious that I get that from time to time, which is where I'm starting to realize, wait, maybe I did look really good once I lost the weight. By the way, I'm down to 230. I'm going to come down to 220. I'm going to do it over the next couple months. It's so easy. And I have all this food in my freezer that I'm just going to not eat because I bought pizza and ice cream. And you know what? The ice cream isn't even the problem. It's all the freaking bread, which is really funny. Yeah. So what would be a good characterization for a truly evil person? Someone without boundaries, or at least really poorly formed boundaries. And that gets reinforced by the halo effect. So they're going to be pretty, charming. They're going to have a beautiful smile. What else is there going to be? They're going to play the victim a lot. And because they're pretty, you're going to assume that they're not lying to you that much, even at all. And they're going to frame everything like it's not going to be direct at all. It's going to be all framing, all narrative, and they're eventually going to, you're going to come across this person, they're going to come off as a victim when bad things happen to them, not as someone who's receiving consequences. For reference, though, to explain some things, why this works, highly confident, there's a whole bunch of very violent men in prison that get all sorts of love letters from women, and it's because of the confidence and because of this feeling of he's bad, but not bad to me. That's what's going on in their head. And it's all you don't even have to be extremely attractive. You can be extremely charismatic and get away with so damn much. Cult leaders tend to have hordes of women come to them for this exact reason. And you tend to see that these cult leaders start sleeping with other men's wives all the time. They take multiple wives, and they end up having... This is the way it all goes. And it's because the pleasures of the world tend to be very attractive and tend and in general the things that you do to achieve them tend to be evil, or evil in itself is attractive and pleasurable, and that is where society has been going. um and like we've seen this finally. The snake in the Garden of Eden was charming. Not to mention, the proposition is also charming. If you look at Genesis 2 allegorically, you can see it right there in your face. Eve was charmed by the idea of, well, by the speech of the snake, and charmed by the idea that maybe I can do something that I'm not supposed to. Like, evil's charming, for crying out loud. So, I'm just telling you right now, the last, I don't know how many hundreds of years that we've written these princes as good heroes is not, it's not entirely bullshit, but this is where I'm going to say that the underlying narrative structure of, I'm going to put it like this, because God is the grand librarian, I think the as above, so below as above, I think we're about to do a paradigm shift, and we're about to change the hero's story, so that way Satan looks beautiful and looks like he's chosen by God, and he's not. We're about to make Satan more human than we are comfortable with. And it is so unnerving, but we're going to enjoy it. We enjoy when Satan wins in today's world. And in fact, we live in a very weird inversion, where even though the gargoyles that protect civilization from Satan, they're facing the wrong way now. And in fact, actually, the gargoyles, the fringes is where you're going to find salvation. I know it's weird to say. The protectors are now the places of salvation. Yeah, those people that mediate between darkness and, like, the potential darkness and the resonating, ordering light, those are the people where we're going to find salvation. Christianity has been inverted. And it's not saying that Christ is evil, it's saying that the people who we've chosen to be our representatives have become indulgent in the power, the authority, the popularity. The popularity is a big one. And they've gained the suavitas to do it. They've become silver-tongued. Like, this is going to sound crazy, but as you act a certain way, your belief systems change, and your framing remodels itself after it. So, and then that also changes your speech patterns, and eventually, if you're not careful, the way you speak becomes so good that you carry the charisma to be the leader that people want you to be. And it's not a leader that God desires. It is a leader of the lowest possible version of the humans that calls out to you. They want you. This is the draw of, how do I put this? There's probably a story around this. This is going to sound crazy, but maybe, no, I think this is correct. I think the Israelites, when they say they wanted a king, this is what they meant. They, instead of God saying, I am that I am, you should have no king but me. They said we want a king. So actually, what actually was going on in, in early Israelite stories before Saul and David and Solomon, the Israelites were tempted with um, with being lorded over. They were tempted with absolving themselves of responsibility for themselves, which is actually really tempting. It's also really tempting to try to escape. I don't think the flee from Egypt was wrong. I think that someone who didn't have a plan with what to do with the people afterwards is, and I think and this is actually the true sin of Moses. His sin wasn't that he hit the rock. His sin was falling to the will of the lowest of wills of the population he was leading. He he didn't sin by, like, he technically did by hitting the rock, but the sin wasn't the physical contact. The sin um was lowering his will, like, how do I put this? It was subordinating himself, his yeah, he was succumbing to the will of the people. He he knew what was right, and in, instead, out of anger and frustration um and appeasement, he appeased the people instead of appealing to God and doing what he knew was right. Um, yeah. Also, there's the reason why I'm making this claim is God isn't in the beautiful. In fact, it's the beautiful. Beauty is the thing that precipitates out of an object trying to meet the no beauty is what how do I put this? Beauty is what precipitates out of a work when it is trying to attain the divine. Well, it's trying to attain its divine image. So, God isn't technically in the beautiful. It doesn't emanate from him. It is a feature that pops out as we're trying to aim up. So, actually, when you see all these beautiful people, that is the material world trying to aim up. Beauty is not, like, if you let beauty become your highest good, it's not going to give you the results that you think it's going to give you, is my claim. And actually, the real claim is that the individual is beautiful because we let God into our hearts. We set him as the flame of our temple, and we worship him. And in so doing so, he gives us commandments that we use to spread throughout the world his kingdom. We're each and every single one of us is beautiful, not materially but spiritually. And God doesn't work on them like he does from time to time choose to have physical interactions on the human or on reality, but usually he does his work on the individual, unless the individual do the work in the material. That's why he used Moses. That's why he used Elijah, and that's why he used his 12 apostles. Even though he did the material works as Christ, he used the humans around him to spread his message. Because there's no way he as an individual could get that completely done. And you also have to understand, like, writing, not everyone could write. So a lot of this had to be kept in oration. And thank God back then, oration was a better way to keep material than it is now, because orated stories and important orated religious beliefs were better memorized. We've actually lost the ability to memorize a whole bunch of that as we've moved to paper. It's not actually horrible, because now we've freed up brain space to have even more complex ideas. And it actually allows us to, I think actually some of what's going on, because we've offloaded some of our memory, our working memory, from story remembering to the pages, we've now allowed some of that to sit in the back in our shadow, in our core library, and we've done alchemy on them. I think this is why Protestantism has kind of exploded into a lot of sects, and that's because some of the ideas we don't remember. Some of them stick around, and they most definitely they most definitely have an effect on us, but we don't entirely remember what they are. And some of them stick around, and we know exactly what they are. And those stories, we don't see what's going on in the back of our heads when they are in the shadow, when they are in the primordial soup, per se. To steal a biological term from the atheists. I know. But anyways, where was I going with this? Beauty is not the realm of the divine. In fact, the realm of the divine is the realm of the divine, and beauty is, you can consider it something like Jacob's ladder. Like, Jacob's ladder is another parallel description for beauty. You can see God as the divinity peers through through beauty. It's like the more beautiful something is, the more it reflects the divine, and it's like peering through a thinner and thinner veil the closer you get to something that touches the soul. So the beautiful thing, that's also why you would think that Satan would use beauty, because beauty, when it's worshipped, will corrupt. If you worship God, He will save you. If you worship the thing that's trying to reflect Him, it will destroy you, because all beauty degrades, all beauty tarnishes. Now, sometimes tarnish is beautiful because we're humans and we fall apart. And that's life, but the human is more beautiful. Again, we've had this conversation. The human is more beautiful than any painting, because we are the temples of God. Yeah. So I don't know how to end this, per se. Maybe I do. Yeah, I do. So my claim is, if you are in the depths of despair, if you are in a terrible job, your partner has been cheating on you, don't give up hope. Start start interacting with the fringes of your social network, and find new friends through them. Move the center from where it is now that the center is dissolving. Pick it up metaphysically, pick it up metaphorically, and move it to the edge and start making friends there. Shift your frame from where it has died to the edges, where things are a little bit whimsical because they've changed since you've been out there last. A lot of the landscape is similar, but some of it has been changed because trees have grown, so some of the boulders have weathered away. Dirt has been swept up places. The hills may have shifted a little bit. Definitely a lot of the wildlife has. Things are a little bit whimsical on the edges. And that will help you. And sometimes that means you just and sometimes if the damage is so catastrophic that even the fringes have been scorched, sometimes that means you have to go on a hero's journey and go into let yourself die, go into the underworld, go into the primordial soup, and be willing to come up something new. But on the flip side, know that in the world today, the major story of society has all the bad guys looking like they belong in the good guy seat, and you just don't know anything about that when you walk in the building. When you start a new job, that odds are the political system has nothing to do with competence and everything to do with social networking. Now, the people who are in those positions may be competent, but don't be fooled. They will try to manipulate you. That is today's world. Our world how do I put this? Capitalism works better the more competence is available. But capitalism itself is a materialistic frame to organize the world. And even though Christianity feels very at home within capitalist framing, capitalism leads to nihilism. And the solution is the fringes of Christianity, the at least in the Western world. I think the fringes lie somewhere in the homes of the pagans and within the homes of the Orthodox. And Christianity is going to have like all the lost Christians are going to have to, if they don't want to fall off the edge of the world, they're not in, into the empty void of nihilism and atheism. They're going to have to start looking for information from other places. My most recent adventure that way has been chakras. I know this sounds crazy, absolutely crazy. What would a man like me be doing reading about chakras? I have a theory. The Eastern guys, the chakra people, the Indians, just in general, the Eastern philosophers found the chakras because they weren't in a law style, in a reason style system of faith. They were in a feeling harmonics style system of faith. And that style of faith lets you, they don't classify them as sins. But to explain what my connection here is, the 7 chakras they seem like the origins of the places where you could sin if you're not attuned to what ways that you are, and what ways that you are tuned off of center with them. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that you should actually, as long as you know where you're off center with them, you should actually be willing to lean into some of your failing points that you don't like. This is shadow work I'm telling you to do. This is Jungian shadow work. see that it is okay, that this is a part of you. You're not a straight ass tree. You have sways and turns, and your branches look a little bit different than everyone else. That's fine. I'm using tree of life ideas here because the human soul is something like the fire of the tree of life, and our body is like a tree of life. This is like one of my ideas that I'm building up. This is like a separate idea that's like in the back of my head. Anyways, chakra work to understand what's going on. They are trying to use physical positions and meditation to bring up the demons that are hiding in you and resolve them through doing most of the same practices that Jesus would have us do. But he has us do, like, they're not the same practice. He has us do charity, and like the church would have us do charity, but like in general, if you read the Beatitudes, it lines up with exactly how you would eliminate the worldly desires that your body could have. And it's directly after his 40-day fast and answering Satan. In fact, I'm almost certain that God's reason for coming to earth was to save himself first, to also therefore save us through the same process. And just because the Hindus and the Western what's the word? I've always said the word. I'll use a different word, which is just as funny. The Gentiles. Just because the Gentiles have different ideas doesn't mean they're wrong. It means that you need to live in order to experience what they're trying to get at. And you can't be entirely in your head. And I think God's first answer was to come to this earth to experience reality and to battle with these ideas and to see the solutions that are brought up. I think the Beatitudes are there as a Christian answer to sin, in the same way that yoga is a Hindu answer. I don't know if it's Hindu created, but I think this is literally 1 a.m. that I'm saying this all, and I haven't done this research in a little while. But yoga is a physical body practice to realign your chakras. It serves a similar purpose. I think, however, the reason why, this is going to sound crazy, I think the reason why people are getting demon possessed when they're walking into this shit. I don't say shit. I don't mean it like that. This is good stuff to read and understand. I know. This is probably this is literally for beginners. I don't care. The reason why they're getting demon possessed is not the reason why the Catholic Church is telling us. What's going on is not even the Eastern Orthodox Church is telling us this. What's going on is the demons no longer, since Christ, they haven't really manifested themselves in material. They actually exist within your soul. So actually, when you start interacting with the spirit world, and you start interacting with who you are, with your body and the chakras, what happens is you start digging around in the rat's nest, and rats start popping out. You start holding the flame up to a den of vipers, and the vipers poof like magic. Where'd they all come from? There's 1,000 feet of rope right there. If you killed them all and ran them together, right? Like, where'd they all come? What's going on is people have demons in them, and they lay dormant for a long time, and the reason why they tend to pop out is because you start holding up a light to them, and you start messing around in their homes because they've made a home out of you. So Catholic priests aren't like, technically their practice of how they cast demons out, it technically works because you're telling a person how they are guilty of something and telling them to confess it, and then telling them to call in the name of God to forgive them of those sins, and then you start following their way. Like, it technically works at a psychological level. The Orthodox way of harmonics works a bit better. Like, I think most Orthodox priests don't have as much hassle with demons. Like, they still come across the demons, but they don't have as much hassle getting them out. And I think some of that has to do with just harmonics, charisma. And the reason why I say charisma is because we harmonize with our ideas. We humans, there's actually very little difference between our actions and our beliefs. We act out our beliefs, and vice versa. If we change our actions, our beliefs change to match them. So actually, if you walk a certain way, people, like, just for an example, they've done the sociological studies, and psychological studies. Criminals know who to target, and they all pick the same people because those people have a frame that the predators find to be easy prey. So what I'm saying, that's not quite perfect the way I said it. The people who hold a specific frame walk and behave a certain way, and you can sense it, you can see it, you can feel it. And the predatory types can also see and feel and sense it, and they pick those people. And a lot of the smarter ones can vocalize that they don't walk with purpose, they walk with fear, like the world around them is dangerous, which of course it is, because you're making it dangerous by walking as though it's dangerous. You give off all sorts of prey vibes, so the predators are going to flock to you. And in that way, like, we harmonize, like, people, like, we read each other all the time with very little social cues. I can tell the criminals walk into my store. I can tell the thieves. I know when they are a bit more than I can chew off, and I have to let them go. And I tell my loss prevention lady, this person stole, because I very rarely have to watch. Now, sometimes they're really, really good at passing themselves off as someone who they're not. But when they do that, they have a pattern that they use. And if you can look back, like, this is like trust but verify. You use the verification, like, oh, this person was 100% in action and in speech lying to me. Now you give that person a loss prevention. Still, you do the same, you still follow up the same practices, but you know to watch this person. They're going to act the exact same way, and you treat them exactly as you know they are, because you know their script. You can watch people, and you can feel when they are trying to get one over on you. And you're not going to catch them all. But the idea is that people actively act out their beliefs and their stories. They are active characters in their own plots. So the idea would be that an Orthodox priest would have easier time casting out demons because they walk a different way than a Catholic priest. There's not guilt. There is, I am bringing heaven on earth. Go away, demon. You have no place here. The Catholic priests have to deal with the fact that all of us are sinners. So if they don't come and get themselves right with God beforehand, even they can be possessed by that exact same demon. In the same way that this is where magic is truly real. In the same way that an Aztec army is riled up by a war spirit to go conquer another tribe, it's in the exact same way that a demon can pop from one person to the next if people aren't prepared. It's psychological, but it's magical. And that's where we have to understand that material reality is but a thin veil laid over the much greater reality of God emanating into a deep water, like a deep primordial soup that he creates the world out of. Or at least he's emanating into this thin sheet. Most of reality is mapping onto the emanations of God. I think that's the better way of putting it. Material reality is mapping directly onto the emanations of God. And this is actually the next crazy idea. This one is the one I've been building up to. And it's right there. God is entirely human. Just because I think the only difference between us is we don't have all the power that he does, and we are not omnipotent, and that we aren't omnipotent. He is entirely human. Satan is 100% a part of God. And most Christians are going to hate me for claiming that. But Satan is a part of God that God rightfully accepts will never be salvageable, and has cast that part from him and seeks to burn that part off of him every day. With that, thank you for watching. I haven't said it yet, so I'm going to say it now. My name's Aaron Klein, and I hope you learned something today.